Om Aganda Timarandasya Ganajana Shivakaya Chakshur Umrisamyena Tajma Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Krishna Kirtana Bhanana Tanapano.
Hare Krishna. Welcome back to this video series on the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 3, Karma Yoga. Arjuna opens Chapter 3 asking Krishna why he is encouraging fighting if intelligence is better than fruit of work. Krishna then explains Karma Yoga, devotional work, and clears up Arjuna's mistaken idea that all work is fruitive and leads to bondage. Krishna explains that Arjuna should fight, that avoiding sinful reactions through devotional work is better than attempting to escape reactions through renouncing work. Krishna also instructs Arjuna to fight and set the proper example of duty. Text number 1. Arjuna said, O Janardana, O Keshava, why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than fruit of work? My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively what is most beneficial for me. The Blessed Lord said, O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who realize the self. Some are inclined to understand him by empirical philosophical speculation, and others are inclined to know him by devotional work. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. All men are forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born of the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. One who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. On the other hand, he who controls the senses by the mind and engages his active organs in work of devotion without attachment is by far superior. Perform your prescribed duty, for action is better than inaction. A man cannot even maintain his physical body without work. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to the material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain unattached and free from bondage. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, Be thou happy by this yagna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, thus nourishing one another. There will reign general prosperity for all. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yagna, sacrifice, supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is first offered for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. All actions, or karma, come with reactions or strings attached. To minimize these reactions or be released from the reactions associated with them, the wise perform special sacrifices. One simple sacrifice is to offer what one eats first to the Supreme Lord. In chapter 9, text 26, Krishna says, If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower or fruit or water, I will accept it. When one first offers what they eat to Krishna, it removes all karma attached to it. We often make sacrifices when it comes to diet, exercise, and education for their long-term benefits. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 9, Text 42, describe two kinds of general activities called Shreyas, ultimate auspicious activity, and Preyas, immediate benefit. Shreyas are activities which are ultimately beneficial and auspicious. An example of this is managing our diet. If we sacrifice and maintain a healthy diet, we get the benefits of a healthier, happier, longer life. If we first offer what we eat to Krishna, that helps determine what our next life will be, which is ultimately beneficial and auspicious. Prayas are activities that we get an immediate benefit from. For example, we want to eat food that just satisfies the tongue, but its long-term effects cause us to be overweight, get diabetes, or some other disease. We enjoy now, suffer later. Arjuna, in the first two verses of chapter 3, asked Krishna to clarify his apparently contradictory instructions. Srila Prabhupada states in his purport to text 1, Arjuna thought that Krishna consciousness or Buddha yoga, intelligence and spiritual advancement of knowledge, as something like retirement from active life and the practice of penance and austerity at a secluded place. In other words, he wanted to skillfully avoid the fighting by using Krishna consciousness as an excuse. But as a sincere student, he placed the matter before his master and questioned Krishna as to his best course of action. In answer, Lord Krishna elaborately explained karma yoga, or work, and Krishna consciousness in this third chapter. From text 4 to text 9, Krishna describes the active nature of the soul. Inactivity is not an option. One's activities must therefore be directed towards self-purification and self-realization, which are the purpose of performing prescribed duties. Krishna tells Arjuna that if work is renounced without adhikar, the qualification or requisite purity of heart, his mind will dwell on sense objects. Because his heart is not yet pure, he will delude himself thinking, I am a renunciate. Krishna is saying, your activities will not match your renounced dress, and you will be a pretender. Such a person is not qualified to receive the Lord's mercy. Not only Arjuna, but all of us should act according to our eligibility. As Arjuna learned of his eligibility from his spiritual master, we should similarly understand our own eligibility from our Guru. Text 14. All living entities subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. My dear Arjuna, a man who does not follow these prescribed Vedic system of sacrifice certainly leads a life of sin, for a person delighting only in the senses lives in vain. One who is, however, taking pleasure in the self, who is illuminated in the self, who rejoices in and is satisfied with the self alone, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme. Even kings like Janak and others attain the perfectional stage by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. Whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in work. For if I do not engage in work, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. If I should cease to work, then all these worlds would be put into ruination. I would also be the cause of creating an unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all sentient beings. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to the results, similarly the learned may also act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people to the right path. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant, who are attached to fruitive action. They should not be encouraged to refrain from work, but to engage in work in the spirit of devotion. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, Almighty Arm, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive result. Krishna warns Arjuna that even in the forest all food is nurtured by rain coming from the demigods. Therefore, he cannot avoid his obligation to perform the sacrifices born of his prescribed duty. Srila Prabhupada elaborates further on this in text 16. By nature's law, this human form of life is specifically meant for self-realization in either of the 3 ways, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga. There is no necessity of rigidly following the performances of the prescribed yagnas for the transcendentalists who are above vice and virtue, but those who are engaged in sense gratification require purification by the above-mentioned cycle of yagna performances. But if by performing yagnas one does not become Krishna consciousness, such principles are counted as only moral codes. One should not therefore limit his progress only to the point of moral codes, but should transcend them to attain Krishna consciousness. Krishna is explaining the meaning of karma in a systematic way. The following verse, text 21, is a famous verse recited by Srila Prabhupada in many of his lectures. He unpacks it further in his purport. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by his exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport. People, in general, always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called an acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures, like Manu Samhita and similar others, are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of such standard shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms that one should follow the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual life. The king or the executive head of state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. In text 26, Krishna instructs that a learned person should not induce people to stop work, but to work in the spirit of devotion. He should engage them in all sorts of activities for gradual development in Krishna consciousness. We have already discussed 3 levels of work. 1. Working only for the fruits of karma kanda. 2. Establishing Krishna as the goal, yet remaining attached to the fruits, Sakam Karma Yoga. And 3. Being completely detached from the fruits of work, Nishkam Karma Yoga. In the second form of work, though the mode of passion is still present, one advances from passion to goodness by renouncing a portion of the results of one's work. A person working this way gradually becomes detached, attains transcendental knowledge, and advances towards the transcendental platform. Text 29. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with mind intent on me, and without desire for gain, and free from egoism and lethargy, fight. One who executes his duties according to my injunctions, and who follows this teaching faithfully, without envy, becomes free from the bondage of fruit of action. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not practice them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and doomed to ignorance and bondage. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows his nature. What can repression accomplish? Attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by the embodied beings, but one should not fall under the control of senses and sense objects, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though they may be faulty, than another's duties. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? The Blessed Lord said, It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion, and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, similarly, the living entity is covered by different degrees of lust. Thus, a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. The senses, the mind and intelligence are the sitting places of this lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharts, in the very beginning curbed this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind, and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher self, and thus by spiritual strength conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. Controlling the mind is extremely difficult. By changing one's taste to a higher consciousness, the process becomes easier. This requires proper knowledge from a bona fide trusted source. Arjuna's Nishtam Karma, fighting in goodness, becomes Bhakti Yoga, detached work, done in devotion for Krishna's pleasure. Although Krishna has often requested Arjuna to act on the platform of detachment and duty, he now reveals his actual desire that Arjuna fight with devotion. Krishna tells Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Without desires for profit and no claims to proprietorship indicate freedom from the mode of passion. Freedom from lethargy hints at freedom from ignorance. Knowledge of the difference between the soul and the body is simply born of the mode of goodness. But full knowledge is beyond goodness and is transcendental, and it indicates knowledge of the soul's eternal relationship with Krishna. Arjuna asked Krishna in verse 36, "By what is one compelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?" Krishna answers, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of the contact with the material mode of passion, and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." Srila Prabhupada expands Krishna's answer in his commentary, where he explains, when a living entity comes in contact with material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust, in association with the mode of passion. Or, in other words, the sense of love of Godhead becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transferred into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatiated, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which introduces the living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual advancement. Chapter 14, titled The Three Modes of Material Nature, will help one understand these three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, more clearly. In this chapter, Krishna has glorified transcendental knowledge as that which elevates us from Sakam Karma Yoga to Nishkam Karma Yoga, from the platform on which we perform our duty with attachment to the platform of detached action. Transcendental knowledge has been described as having the power to purify our consciousness of passion and raise it to goodness. Now in the final verse of this chapter, Krishna has certified transcendental knowledge as being able to award our intelligence the strength to overcome lusty desires. After describing so many of the benefits of transcendental knowledge, Krishna will further glorify it in chapter 4. That ends this chapter. Thank you for watching. In the next chapter, we will discuss chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujagam Sri Jiva Gopalakam Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tana Param Premam Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Kana Nima Sajam Pujito Krishna Kirtana